Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Advisory Board meeting. Can everyone hear me? Okay, it's October 2nd at 6:06 p.m. This is a meeting for the Planning Advisory Board. I will do a roll call for our members. Melanie Hartwig Davis. She's online. Lawrence Plevin.
Present.
Edward Evans. Van Mason.
Present.
Elizabeth Rossberg.
Present.
Dawn Stolfus. And myself, Gus Kurtz. So we have 5 members, we have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays? The agenda is approved. A motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The minutes are approved. Before we start the PAB meeting, I want to provide a little context on the Planning Advisory Board. There are a lot of folks who may or may not be familiar with our work. The Planning Advisory Board is a volunteer board of 7 members appointed by the county executive. Each member comes from one of the 7 council districts, and we make advisory recommendations on master plans, zoning maps, and the capital budget and programs. Tonight, we're going to discuss draft Region 1. And tonight's meeting is a public hearing on draft Plan 1 and comprehensive zoning maps. And we'll start with a brief overview of the planning process from Mark Wildonger, a senior planner with Region 1 team. Mark?
Okay, great. And can everybody hear me in the back? Yeah, okay, let me try to speak into this a little closer. All right, so again, good evening, everyone. Like Chairman Kurtz said, my name is Mark Wildonger, senior planner on the Region 1 planning team. So again, thank you for coming out tonight, and for everybody that stayed engaged in the process, or if you're starting tonight, this is your first meeting, welcome. Look forward to seeing you at future meetings. During this process, the Office of Planning and Zoning worked closely with the county executive and county council appointed stakeholder advisory committee. So I do want to just give a special thank you to the SAC for your time and dedication to the process. 2 weeks ago, the Office of Planning and Zoning provided a briefing on the region plan and comprehensive zoning process, some highlights of the draft plan, and recommended zoning changes. At that meeting, OPZ, the Office of Planning and Zoning, we did a lot of talking. So tonight, as Chairman Kurtz had said, is your night. That presentation was recorded and can be found on the Region 1 hub site, which is aacounty.org/region 1. And I'll have a link in the next slide or two with that reference. Tonight, I really just want to provide a brief overview of the next steps in the process and a timeline. So, if you've had a chance to look at the zoning map, you may have noticed some areas that are being recommended to change, some zoning areas. And so this provides just a statistical analysis or overview of the zoning districts within Region 1 and what the adopted zoning acreage is within that zoning district and the proposed and the change. Just real quick about the zoning districts, if it's an R, if it starts with an R, that's one of our residential districts. If it's say R1, that means 1 unit per acre. R5, 5 units per acre, for example. If it's a C, it means it's a commercial zone with different levels of intensity and or different types of uses. W is our industrial zoning districts. Yep, thank you. And again, sort of varying from intensities from, say, an industrial park to light and heavy types of uses. MXD, over on the left-hand side, are our mixed-use zoning districts where developers are required to provide a certain mix of uses, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, or office on those properties. SB up at the top on the right-hand side is our small business, sort of that transition between a commercial zone and a residential zone, looking at some of those smaller types of business uses, like an in-home business. Open space, which is, I think, on the, where the toolbar there, perfect. On the lower right-hand side is our open space zoning district, and N is a maritime zoning district, which I think is also sort of tucked away at the bottom there. But again, as you can find, this same chart on that recording from last week's presentation. Just a brief explanation, looking at some of the changes, more significant changes. There was an increase in the R1 zoning district because of some upzoning in the Fillmore Road area, which is in northwest Hanover. There was a decrease in the R5 zoning district because of, again, recommended changes in the Belgrove mining site. MXDT, there was an increase because of recommended changes around the BWI Mark station, primarily on the west side of that floodplain or over on the Corporate Center Drive side of the Mark station, as well as around the Cromwell Light Rail Station. There was a decrease in W1 because of some owner applications, and likewise, they were upzoned, and that's why you may see.
I got a whole conversation going on over here, so can we please slow that down on this side so I can hear what he said?
Sure. And so you might see a similar increase in the W2 zoning district as a result of some of that upzoning in the W1 zoning district. And W3, there were some consistency changes in the Brandon Shores and Brooklyn Park and City of Baltimore, just sort of on our side, obviously, of the city lines there. And when I say consistency changes, that's something that we do provide in that briefing we provided to the Planning Advisory Board 2 weeks ago, where we go through the types of changes and some of the justification behind that.
Mark, can you clarify what the adopted column means and the proposed who or the owners, the planners, who is the source of the proposed changes, and also what the adopted column is?
So the adopted is the currently adopted zoning map. The proposed map is based on the Office of Planning and Zoning's recommendations. So I'll go through a brief process of what entities are providing recommendations and at what points, and who, and ultimately county council has the authority to adopt the zoning map.
Who's the adopted column adopted? How many years ago?
Well, there was a comprehensive zoning process about 10 years ago, but there may have also been administrative rezonings over these past 10 years. Debbie. Okay, moving on to the next slide then. Again, just to help orient you, this is what we call our hub site, our website, where it just has a wealth of information. When you go to aacounty.org, region 1, there at the bottom of the screen, this is what comes up on your screen first. We have the draft region 1 plan. We have the online viewer, zoning viewer, as well as some tables so that you can identify. What we've done is where there is a recommended change, there's a code. And so that you can sort of follow these breadcrumbs to find some more information about what that change is, the justification, the address of those, how big of a change it is recommended to do.
Property is we're talking about.
We're not talking about a specific piece of property. I just really want to orient you to this website where you can find more information about not only the plan itself, but the planning process, the stakeholder advisory committee members, and ways to stay involved. So two links I do want to, or please check out all the links, but one in particular is if you're at this meeting by just word of mouth, most other folks maybe had heard about this through a letter or through an email. Please use that link right there. Sign up for the region newsletter. you'll get updates when there are public hearings like this or when when we're moving to the next step in this process. You can also find then more information up at the top is our stay involved link, which will just shoot you right down down the page. And you'll find, again, more specific information like when meetings are scheduled, where those meetings are held, what time, some more information and additional links for those meetings. So moving on then to the next slide, where we talk about our process here. I want to emphasize that the Planning Advisory Board, where we are tonight, is not the final step. So after the PAB review, the plan and zoning map are introduced to the county council, who has the authority to adopt the plan and the zoning map. So again, as mentioned, in the last meeting, this process started over a year ago and has included several opportunities for public participation. And when the plan and zoning map go to council, they'll have recommendations from the Office of Planning and Zoning, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, because in certain situations, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee may have had different recommendations from the Office of Planning and Zoning. And after the Planning Advisory Board's deliberation meeting in the middle of November, they'll have their own recommendations. Some may be similar to the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, some may be similar to the Office of Planning and Zoning, some may be completely different. All three of those then recommendations for a recommended zoning go to county council, and like I said, they have the authority to adopt the zoning map.
Excuse me. I'm one of those identified property, I've tried to opt out of the rezoning, the rechanges, and no one has acknowledged it, will answer it. How do we publicly finish opting out of changing the zoning of my property?
And you've emailed somebody?
Yes, I have.
What somebody should have gotten back to, so we can.
I'm asking what else can we do? Because I've tried twice, because I'm not interested in going to the tax people and asking what the tax implications are. I'm interested in opting out. I don't want my property zone changed.
Yeah, Chairman Spriggs, I wonder if this might be a better comment for the public hearing, where we can then ask the individual to provide their name, address, or change ID number, and we can get that more officially on the record.
Okay.
If that.
Mark, can you explain a little more, who's on the stakeholder advisory committee, how they're selected, what it is?
Right, so it was again, a county executive and county council appointed 15 individual committee made up of peers, your local residents, local business owners, or developers. And actually, if you do go to the website, we have the stakeholder advisory committee members' names, as well as they provided a biography, so you can read a little bit more about them. We also have the county council resolution, which again, is if you're interested in understanding why they were selected, after each individual's name, we have a parentheses and it says they represent this community or this demographic. So I invite you.
For the county, or there's one per region?
Stakeholder advisory committee, there's one per the 9 regions we're working in.
One that covers.
One stakeholder advisory committee per region.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mark. On the website, I saw that Region 1, Brooklyn Park, is got next to it in parentheses, under the way. Does that mean it's?
So Brooklyn Park is part of the Region 1 plan, which we're all here today because that plan is underway. Okay, so moving on to the next slide then. Is a little more in-depth look at this planning advisory board process, as well as then just identifying what that next step is in this process, which is county council. So as I mentioned, highly recommend folks check out that recording from the meeting 2 weeks ago, where we provided, I think it was like about an hour's long briefing on this process, getting into the details, highlighting specific aspects of the plan, as well as some highlights from the zoning map. So again, please go to that website, aacounty.org/region1, so that you can view that video or that recording. So at that meeting then is when the public record for written testimony was opened. And written testimony can be submitted, again, if you go to that website, we provide instructions on how you can provide that written testimony. And it can be provided until October 16th through the hub site. So again, tonight is that opportunity for oral testimony. Finally, there will be additional input opportunities at the public hearings when the plan zoning map go to county council for the review and consideration. So please continue to stay engaged and please let friends, family, coworkers know about the process and how they can be involved. So, like I said, we really want tonight to be about the public hearing. So if you want to advance to the next slide, again, just thank you for attending, for your comments here this evening. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chairman Kurtz for any additional questions or to start the public hearing.
Thank you, Mark. Just an important announcement, the Orioles have tied it up in the bottom of the pit. I've been checking my phone to see what the score is. Okay, the Planning Advisory Board will now open up for public hearing. Every speaker is afforded 2 minutes per property. Please, when you come forward, identify your name and the property that you are referring to. And if you know the CZ number, which is the change zoning request number, that would be helpful for us. We have a list of people that have signed up to speak, but if you're not on that list, you will be able to speak. We'll run down the list and then we'll open it up to anybody that wants to speak here tonight, or if they're on Zoom, they can speak via the Zoom. When you're called, please come to the front of the room, provide your name and address before you start your comments. If you're on Zoom, and right now we only have one Zoom sign up, we will open up the mic for you on the computer, and hopefully, if it works well, everybody will be able to hear you through our sound system. In respect to everyone's time, please try not to repeat what previous people, maybe regarding the same property, have said. In our public hearings, we listen and we note your comments. Planning Advisory Board will not make any recommendations on zoning changes this evening. The Office of Planning and Zoning staff will not respond to comments or questions tonight. They will prepare a summary of the comments received, and this board will deliberate and make a recommendations on the draft Region 1 plan and comprehensive zoning changes in our meeting on November 13th. That meeting will be in Annapolis, and you're welcome to attend that meeting. Also, written testimony on this region will be accepted until midnight on October 16th. Written comments can be submitted via the survey linked on the agenda for this meeting. And sir, to address your question, if you will please come down when we're done with our sign-up speakers and just identify the property that you're referring to so it's on record, and someone will definitely have planning and zoning get back with you in the next couple of days.
Fine.
You ready? Okay. With that, we're going to call on first Karen Carabani. Karen is the chair of the SAC, and she's going to recap the process of the SAC's work. SAC is the Stakeholder Advisory Committee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Carabani. I am the chair of the Region 1. My address is 103 Von Air Avenue. I live in Brooklyn Park, but I am also a long-term resident of Ann Arbor County. I would just like to briefly speak to the work that the Stakeholders Advisory Committee has put into the, recommendations that we have given to the planning, board. We worked, very closely with, the Office of Planning and Zoning, with our community members, and also, other stakeholders in the area. We put in a lot of effort, a lot of time reading documents. We're probably could work for the Office of Planning and Zoning at this point, learning all the codes, hundreds of documents, public testimony, surveys and things, and this process has taken, quite a while. And so I'm just asking that, you take that into consideration when you're making your decisions, and respect the effort and the time, and collaboration that has been put into those documents. We have, worked closely again with OPZ to match the comprehensive planning maps, which are located online as well. For the public, it has been an ongoing process. We have reconvened at times to, even re-vote on certain topics so that we could, have the best outcome for, not only land, owners, but also the surrounding communities that will be affected by the decisions and the changes that, will be made, by your next decision. So I'm basically just asking you guys to take that into consideration, heavily, the long-term planning that we have also done to make that, informed decision, because that's what it is. It's everything that you need to know that we did that work so that you could do less work. But, we did do that work. So thank you.
Thank you. So a comment on that. First, I want to thank the SAC for all their hard work. They work on these plans months and months and lots of meetings. And one of the things, just so you can appreciate this, it's not a rubber stamp. The SAC meets with planning and zoning. Planning and zoning makes their recommendation, which we have here. And then the SAC make their recommendation. And they always don't agree. So just because planning and zoning says one thing does not mean the SAC is going to go along with them. There are areas where there's differences of opinion. And then we as a board look at that and then we make our recommendation. So tonight, the most important thing is we are here to hear you and hear about your concerns on your property. The next speaker is Rockio Bolanos. And while Rockio is getting ready, I'm going to be calling Karan Najib and Derek Demby.
Evening, everyone, and my name is actually Rocio.
Rocio.
It's okay. I'm with Greater Bay Brook Alliance, and I'm actually here to represent some of the Latino members that live, or residents that live in the Brooklyn Park area, is borderline with Arundel and Baltimore. I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Basically, what we want is for the planning and zoning to take into consideration that what we really want is for our future to see our land beautiful and prosper, and also somewhere we want to live for a longer time, just like, you know, all of our parents and grandparents have lived. I went knocking on doors. That was part of my duty to do, for me to collect some of this comments. And I ran into a few folks that lived in that area for over 20 years. And they're just like really concerned for so many changes, because they really like the area. They just feel like the only things we really need for our children's growing up are just parks and community centers for them to be occupied instead of being in the streets. So that's basically all we really want, is to have a community where we have less kids, you know, roaming the streets, doing drugs. So we just really want community centers and parks. That's pretty much it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Debbie? Virtual.
Rosia? What was the significance of the board that you had?
These are common, like written notes that the residents gave me at the door. I had a QR code that I wanted them to do their own written comments online. Most of them were Latinos, so they couldn't do it online. So I asked if they could just give it to me in written so I can bring it and present it to you guys.
So each one of those comments or those bubbles have a comment on it?
Yes, but it was gonna take longer than 2 minutes, so I just wanted it to give the round, you know.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. Thanks for the effort.
Thank you. Our next speaker is online.
Sorry, Chair, can I follow up real quick?
Sure.
Sorry, on the board though, and I understand it would take, is she gonna leave the board with our staff so that we can have that? I mean, I don't want that information to go to waste, not be observed, right, and not read it, so.
We'll make sure that the board sees it.
Yeah, thank you, that'd be great.
And Mr. Chair, can you please call the name of the person who will speak online and ask them to raise their hand so we can give them access to speak?
Okay, Kareen Najeb, please raise your hand and we'll turn your mic on.
Hello.
Hello. The floor is
Hi.
yours. We can hear you.
Okay. So I'm just here to ask, like, what is the next steps for this? How long do you anticipate before approval is to be done? And if the recommendation is done, is there any way that we can start getting planning done for it? So that way we're ready by the time that the plan does go into effect?
Okay, is there a specific property that you're referencing?
Yes,
Or the
25
process?
Nursery Road. It was originally OS zoning. We had requested R5 and you guys recommended that as well.
Okay, so when we meet on the 16th, we'll make a recommendation on that once we discuss it. Then that gets turned over to the county council, and then the county council will make their recommendations, amendments, and vote on it.
Okay, and as far as my, I guess, any argument as far as why I'm requesting R5 is that the surrounding areas that are touching it are also R5, and there's been recommendations for them to be R5. And for that reason, we believe that it's conforming with the rest of the property and parcels around it.
Okay, make sure you submit written testimony on the website about that CZ 0401.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Derek Denby. And then after Derek, we have Chip Bowen and Harry Bowen. Derek, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Colonel Derek Denby. I'm talking in reference to application CZR1 LHS 0009. And I'm here to speak about the said application that was submitted to zoning by me. I reside at 6605 Maryland Avenue. It's right off of Andover Road, across the street from the koala care. For many justifiable reasons, I submitted this, and that it would mean no immediate impact. It meant immediate impact to my family. We all know, of the unaffordable oil price and lack of quality housing in Region One and in Anne Arundel County as a whole. In December 2018, all of the property from Maryland Avenue, directly across the street from my house, up to Nursery Road, was purchased and rezoned from R1 to mixed use. That was over 6 years ago. And nothing has been developed due to the numerous restrictions that the county had imposed on the developer. Thus, over 200 affordable homes to date have not been built. I submitted my application for my property to be rezoned to R5 directly across the street from the multi-use property. The zoning board supported the application as well as the stakeholder advisory committee. Unfortunately, on the overlay, it included Maryland Avenue and White Avenue. The inclusion completely disregarded the needs of the residents on Maryland Avenue, which are about 3 of them, 3 landowners on Maryland Avenue. And of those 3 landowners, 100% of those support the rezoning of R5 requests. It should have continued to be independent of White Avenue and all the people against the rezoning. None of them were from Maryland Avenue. Went over a little bit, but after community input was done, the rezoning board was recommended R2. This recommendation, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I own this property for over 20 years. I've been in Linthicum since I was 6 years old, and I want to subdivide and give this property to my daughters so that they can live near granddad, grandkids, and in order to do that, we're just asking for that little area on Maryland Avenue to be rezoned for R5. I had a little bit more, I'll just read that with the panel, they can read on their own. But thank you for your time.
Mr. Demme, we have time, if you have a little bit.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I just had one more paragraph. Let me go through it again. Thank you. I've owned a property for over 20 years, and my dream was to be able to subdivide and have my children, my nieces, and my one nephew build their home and have my grandchildren close by me and my wife and into our older age. We have been planning to do this, and it will have minimal impact on the community. My oldest granddaughter is special needs and will have quality of life issues for the rest of her life. And 3 years ago, we explored adding to our home, but the county ordinances prevented my daughter from adding something that could fit her and her 3 kids. So we thought about rezoning and having a house built right beside our house. So I can expound if need be, but I can assure you that we are in need of the support from the community so that I may continue to support the needs of my family. We need this R5 rezoning on Maryland Avenue. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Rosberg, a question. Ms. Moody, I think you had just.
Elizabeth?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I had a question. Could you please repeat the application number?
CV R1 LHS 0009.
0009. Okay, and you're looking at 3.1 acres?
Yes, my home is on 3.1 acres, and another family member of mine owns the property right beside mine, which is another acre. And then we have some new neighbors that just moved in about 6 months ago.
Is
Okay,
that address also Maryland Avenue?
Yes, sir.
so I guess my question is why, if you wanted to build 2 houses, R1 is not sufficient?
Well, I have 3 daughters and 3 nieces, so I have 6 to be exact. But I have one daughter who has the special needs child. She's ready to build tomorrow, and then my second oldest daughter, she's ready to build maybe in about a year. So I'm looking forward, and it's just them, and they don't need a whole bunch of grass to cut either. So.
So you have, I'm sorry, again, 3 daughters
Yes,
and
ma'am.
3 nieces?
Yes, ma'am, and one nephew.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bolin,
Here's the list for Arundel. If you could please call me 2 or 3 at a time, I think fair.
Yep.
Gary Bowen, Chip Bowen. I'm here for the property at 6931 Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard. I would like to thank the Planning Advisory Board for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Belgrove Corporation that has owned this property for 75 years. My name is Chip Bowen, and I started working at the site when I was 13 years old. I am the great grandson of C.B. Jones Jr., who founded the Belgrove Corporation in the latter 40s. We have run a state licensed business on this property for roughly 70 years, with many local people running businesses that have used our sites. We have attended many community meetings and have created lifelong friendships with many people in the surrounding area. And now we as a group have a chance to really make a lasting difference with infrastructure, the area sorely needs, create jobs that people can have, that can support a family, and finally have a chance to really make housing that this county so desperately needs. We have been working on this project for roughly 7 years, and the county OPZ has recommended approval of our request. The SAC, however, has recommended mixed-use zoning. That zoning designation would now not allow for light industrial uses and would limit development in much-needed housing. We ask you to support OPZ's recommendation and our request to rezone this property to a mix of W2, R5, and R10. We have been transparent and open to ideas and have gotten letters of endorsement from some of the local communities for this plan. And we have been working closely with a local developer that will respond to and recognize the needs of our neighbors in northern Antelope County. In closing, I have enjoyed working in this area for my entire 35-year career. And I look forward to the property being developed with the recommendations of the OPZ in support of the Planning Advisory Board. Thank you very much.
Reference that area again.
thank you, Mr. Bolin.
6931 Belgrove Pit,
Speak up into the microphone.
6931 P&A Boulevard, Belgrove Pit.
Thank you.
Chair, may I make a request?
Yes,
Thank you. So I think Elizabeth and we're here on our computers trying to pull this up on a map. So when you guys say, when speakers say their address, if you could go very slowly or also the number so that we can get into our computers, we're trying to, like pull it up and look at it and make some notes here. That'd be really helpful. It's difficult when you go fast. I know you're in the 2-minute mark, so I apologize if that takes longer, but maybe we can, or some other way that we can get a heads up on what's coming up, because we don't know until they say it at the podium.
Thank you, Melanie. And if you can just start with telling us if it's in Hanover or Linthicum, then we can flip our pages to that page, would be helpful to follow. Thank you.
well noted. I'd like to recognize your county council person in the room, Mr. Smith, Pete Smith. Okay, the next speaker is Harry Bowling.
That was me, that's my property.
That's yours also? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there, Kinley Bray here? Okay, Kinley is going to be speaking on a number of different properties. And that is Brooklyn Park 0004, Brooklyn Park 0003, Hanover 1196, Hanover 1198, and Linthicum Heights 0001.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Kurtz and members of the Planning Advisory Board, and for members of the public and Councilmember Smith for being here. My name is Kinley Bray, and I'm here on behalf of the Belgrove Corporation first, so I will speak to that application number, which is the same as Mr. Boland just spoke on. That is in Brooklyn Park, CZ. Now, I should have had my reading glasses with me, CC BLP 0004 A, B, and C. I also have a handout for the board, and we will follow this up with written comments as well. And I will be very brief, because Mr. Bullen covered most of this, but this property is made up of 7 parcels and comprises 164 acres in Brooklyn Park. The existing rezoning is shown on the existing zoning is shown on the first page of the handout. You can see all 7 parcels and the split zoning lines that impact all of these parcels. We are requesting to simplify the zoning plan and essentially move property that is currently zoned C4, R5, R10, and W2 into W2, R10, and a portion remains in R5. This allows for a variety of housing types and designs to provide housing choices, facilitates construction of the needed infrastructure improvements in this area due to the inclusion of light industrial and employment centers. It's consistent with the transit goals of Plan 2040 by providing jobs near transit. The western portion of the property has better traffic circulation and will reduce impacts along Bell Grove Road. The current industrial zoning is only in the northeastern corner, which is only accessible via Bell Grove Road. And the BGE right-of-way is sort of a natural transition point between existing and continued lower intensity industrial use and housing. This property is in industrial use as a sand and gravel mine and a recycling facility. And it requires permits from the state that must be renewed every 5 years. The future of the property is not in continued sand and gravel, although Bell Grove continues to operate, and until they have approved development, they will continue to operate. So the goal in this once every 10 to 12 year process is to provide zoning that would allow the existing use to conform and then also allow for future development of the property. You'll see the center of the property remains in R5, which could be a future park location for the property. The Office of Planning and Zoning is recommending the approval of the applicant's request. And the Stakeholder Advisory Committee recommended mixed use zoning. While we appreciate the efforts of the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, we believe that this is a mistake because while it would avoid split zoning the parcel, mixed use does not allow for either the existing use to conform to zoning or future uses that the applicant has been working with the developer on to be permitted. And finally, only one of the 7 parcels that is owned by Bell Grove would, if their request is approved, be split zone. That's parcel 26 in the middle. That becomes W2 and R5. The remainder would be entirely in W2 or R10 zones as proposed. So we recommend the PAB adopt the recommendation of the Office of Planning and Zoning, and I'm happy to answer questions and to follow this up with written submission.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board members?
Question,
Elizabeth?
Chairman, can you hear me? Okay, good. So what is the proposed future use that you're looking for?
Light industrial and housing.
So would light industrial fall under W2?
Yes, it would be permitted by W2.
And housing, what type of housing?
A variety of housing, likely multifamily townhouses, and at one point, we were working with the county on a potential workforce housing project as well on a couple of acres of that R10.
And workforce would be under R10?
Correct.
Okay. And do you have any idea how many units you're looking at for the R10 part of the parcel?
Not at this time. the current proposed zoning of R5, is, I think everybody acknowledges, would be significantly more dense than would be appropriate on this site. It's 164 acres. And so we're proposing a smaller portion of the property go in R10 and a larger portion of the property go into that W2 zoning to allow for employment centers. And that would be closest to the transit.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Lawrence?
I got a quick question. What was the previous zoning for the 2040 plan?
The
There's
current,
R5.
the current plan 2040 has it in low density residential.
Okay, great. Why would you stick an extremely large industrial complex right in between two neighborhoods? I believe there are codes to that. Does that meet requirements of codes?
The existing property is in industrial use and has been since 1949. The entire property became a sand and gravel mine in 1951.
Okay,
So for
so
75 years, this property has been used as industrial property. And the existing circulation patterns for traffic in and out and around the property allow for greater access to vehicles on Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard on the western side rather than the eastern side. But the current zoning, which was adopted in 2011, includes only a small amount of industrial in the northeast portion, which is not accessible to the road network. And the rest, which is currently in mining operations, is the residentially zoned right now.
okay, so did you go to the zoning before and what was that outcome?
That is currently under appeal.
Okay, so you got appealed and then you went to the circuit court and what was that outcome?
That is the appeal I'm referencing.
Okay, great. What was the outcome of the first one then?
It was reversed.
It was reversed, so it was denied in the beginning. Correct.
It was denied and the circuit court reversed it, but that is really not relevant to the comprehensive rezoning
So-
process that we're in right now. It's a separate process.
Yeah, okay, so in the zoning, and you're changing zoning, you know, and since you are industrial use now, but you have been labeled R5 for 70 years, did you not short the county tax money on that? Is that something? And then inspections every 5 years. I think, I'd like to see those results before we start to go any further with that.
I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Okay, great. I guess, do you have any other reasons? Because if it is industrial, then I guess you have a plan for it. What are your plans?
The property is actually at this time not zoned for industrial because the county has kept it in a non-conforming use status. This use predates the existing zoning of the county. And so at this time, before the property owner fully develops plans, it will need to have the proper zoning in place on which those plans can then be developed. So the plans right now are have been to request industrial zoning on the western portion of the property and R10 on the eastern portion of the property to allow for housing. There are some preliminary renderings that have been provided to the Pumphrey community and to others by the developer. We'd be happy to submit those in writing for the planning advisory board to look at.
Okay, do you happen to know, since he submitted them, what did they say about them? What have the community said about the submitted plans?
The Pumphrey community supported the Pumphrey Improvement Association supported the plan that was presented by the developer. And they did so in writing.
No. We did not.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say that while we do that, but we're gonna go ahead and- Okay, moving on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go ahead and submit that as part of the written package as well. I would love to.
Okay, hold on a second, Councilman Smith would like to say a word.
Specifically on the Humphreys project, those that don't know Pete Smith, councilman for this area. Last summer, I actually sat with the Pumphrey community, and gave them a couple of different options. We actually had legislation, that we were gonna pass, here previously. But, you know, I was obviously there are some other issues that came up, but Humphreys did actually agree to the conditions that we had presented to them, last fall timeframe. They sent us a letter, in writing, stating, what they, agreed to. So that was an actual fact, that they did, the community as a whole did agree to what we were trying to do. We were gonna, half of the land, half of the 160 acres was going to be housing, 25% of it was going to be a warehouse space, and then 25% was going to be a public park or some sort of open space sort of activity that the county didn't have to purchase. And we were going to get that. That was the intent, to get that from the developers. So that was the agreement that Humphreys understood and had worked with me on for about 7 or 8 months when we presented that to the county as well as these individuals. So that wasn't right, just to make sure that was, put in concise terms. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Bray, you're gonna speak on other CZ changes.
Thank you very much, and I will be very brief. CZ R1 BLP 0003 A, B, C, and D is an application by parcel 247 Holdings for a rezoning to W1, W2, and W3 this is the most northeasternmost corner of the county. Fairfax Avenue, Arundel Boulevard, and Messina Circle. This application sought W1, W2, and W3 zoning, and the Office of Planning and Zoning support that. The FAC recommended inclusion of R5 zoning at the northernmost portion of this parcel to provide a buffer between the existing residential users and the proposed industrial zoning. That particular part of the property is separated by the remainder of the property, which is requested for W1, W2, and W3 by stream valley and number of wetlands. However, it is appropriate for forest conservation area and other open space to support the industrial development on the rest of the property. And so the applicant has requested that it remain in industrial zoning so that we don't run into a problem in the development division review of the property where they say that we're placing forest conservation or open area on residentially zoned property to support an industrial project. We would prefer that the property remain in industrial designation rather than be split to R5. And that area, again, is separated by wetlands and not likely to be improved with any industrial buildings at that point. So that was just an inconsistency, and we wanted to point that out and request that the planning advisory board look at that discrepancy and support the applicant's recommendation or request.
Thank you.
And finally, the last application I had signed up to speak on is 804 and 806 West Nursery Road in Linthicum. This is an existing property that is on the north side of Nursery Road, across from an existing industrial development and adjacent to the off-ramp to Nursery Road from 695. It is currently in commercial zoning, and we have requested either C2 or C4 or W2 in order to support heavier commercial or industrial uses consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. One of those parcels is currently in use as a parking lot, and the other, and there is also an real estate office located on there. The Office of Planning and Zoning's recommendation was to keep it in C3 in the hopes that it might develop as a neighborhood shopping center, much like the existing shopping center that is immediately west of this property and closer to the corner of Hammond's Ferry Road. Our client has asked that we ask the Planning Advisory Board to reconsider that and to look at our request for C4 or W2 to support uses that are more consistent with this industrial character of that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, Ms. Rosberg, a question here.
Elizabeth, question? Unmute, Elizabeth.
Sorry, can we go back to the last one? I flipped too many pages to say, but you were talking about forest conservation easements and looking at that property, would you be willing to go into a memorandum of agreement to have those forest conservations put in place?
In all likelihood, that was what will have to happen when the property is subject to a development application. I will say we can't enter into a memorandum of agreement agreeing to do anything in particular to a property in exchange for zoning. That would be contract zoning, which is not permitted under the law. But that in all likelihood, any development that would take place on that property is going to be on the southern side of those wetlands and stream valley in the area that we've requested. Sort of, if you look at the graphic that we submitted, it sort of looks like a pie, W1, W2, W3. And the only development proposal at this time on the property is on the southeastern corner in the area that is proposed to be W3. And we have already received comments from the Office of Planning and Zoning stating that, you know, anything that goes through the critical area or what is currently zoned R10 would have to be, cannot support an industrial development currently zoned W2. So if the property were rezoned, we would want to make sure that the property that northern portion of the property stays in residentially zoned category, a industrial category rather than residential. The other thing to note is that that is not accessible from the south because of that stream valley and wetland. Any development on that area that the Office of Planning and Zoning has called out for R5 would have to be accessed through the existing residential neighborhood, and the developer just has no interest in bringing cars through there.
Any other questions?
So, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, the next two speakers will be Bill Blanchett. And it looks like, is it Mayor?
Yes, it is. But I'm not gonna speak.
Okay. Hi, Skip.
My name is Bill Blanchett, and I own properties along Stall Point Road, which is an industrial area, W3, that's adjacent to the Army Depot. I don't want to speak about the mixed-use zoning change to the Army Depot. The property that I own, about 40 acres total between the two. They've been in heavy industrial use for over 100 years. This change of mixed-use zoning is not compatible with the character of that. There's few places in the county with that continuous amount of industrial. I think the total is about 80 acres along Stall Point, all heavy industrial use. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, heavy truck traffic. So just the change to introduce residential to a nuisance industrial area makes no sense to me. I came here on short notice. The other question I have is I'm familiar with the environmental issues throughout Curtis Bay. And the Army Depot has a history of contamination. Can you speak into the mic? Oh, sorry. The Army Depot history of contamination and very questionable, uses that are not readily disclosed to everyone. And it sounds like they want to do the residential on the south end, which would make, I don't know who would want to buy a house with that history on a site, nor do I think it's good planning on the county's part to introduce, you know, we know that contamination of soils, and you can't always cap everything. Sparrows Point is capped, it's all industrial. Nobody built a house over in Sparrows Point. You have 500 acres of W2. It's a great industrial site. You would probably discourage maybe a very important highway industrial developer from coming onto that site for redevelopment if you had, he knew he was going to be adjacent to a residential area. Common sense to me, I don't understand this. It makes no sense to me. We object to it. Every other owner on Small Point Road objects to it. And we'd like you to reconsider that. It is not compatible, nor does it sound like it's safe from a change or future use. Thank you.
Thank you. For Elizabeth and Melanie, that would be CZ R1 CSB 0301. That is the Army Depot property. Okay, next speaker, Mr. Doan. And then Shelley Thies. And then Mr. Johnson. And the last speaker would be Timothy Burks.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? My
Yes.
name's Ken Doan. I live at 329 Ferndale Road in Ferndale. And I'm here to speak in opposition of CZ R1 FND 0002, changing SB to C4. I believe that changing it from SB to C4 will change the image of the community. SB was designed as a buffer between the highway, the airport, and a highly dense residential community. The Ferndale that I speak of is between Aviation and Baltimore and Eccles Boulevard. Very high dense. I've lived there all my life, 64 years. Earlier, some time ago, a company tried to put in a Dunkin' Donuts in that corner. Once the community found out about that, we had a very large turnout in Annapolis. Mainly because Dunkin' Donuts, the owner, wanted to have, I forget the proper name, revisions to the zoning. I forget the proper name. That was denied. We had 2 meetings. The second meeting was very well attended, and ultimately the permit was denied, and it was sold to the current owner. This letter, I received this letter just 2 weeks ago. I let some friends of mine know that were involved in blocking the Dunkin' Donuts. They were surprised to hear about it. I posted it on Nextdoor. Give it some more time. I'm sure we can mobilize the community to engage the planning commission and let their feelings known about that intersection. It's a heavily traveled road, Aviation Boulevard. There's already, I believe, a couple C4 properties there, but they have buffers. And they've been in that community for a long time, and there's a ski shop, there's JJ Haynes, you go further south, and that's kind of an isolated area. You have Royal Farms, 7-Eleven, State Police. That's really isolated. Once you get north of JJ Haynes, it's all wood as a community. You get a lot of residential community. It'll just change the character of that whole strip from there. So, that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with that. I'm firmly a resident.
Okay, thank you. Give written testimony. If you don't speak tonight, go online and give your written testimony.
My biggest problem is I don't do computers.
Mrs. Thies? Yes.
Oh, okay, right. Okay. You're welcome. Oh,
Yep, sure. So I'm Shelley Teese. I am a lifelong Ferndale Livingston resident. I live on Main Avenue. We mentioned earlier, a little bit earlier this evening. And I just wanted to take an opportunity, one, that I appreciate the planning zone board being here, that I can address them. And one, Mark and Karen, when we came to the Citizens Advisory Committee, we had a large community turnout, so we appreciated you taking the time to hear us. And at least sticking with the current zoning of R1 for the time being. But we just want to take the opportunity to reiterate our stance with Main Avenue and White Avenue, that we really appreciate being zoned R1. And one of the things, I don't know, if I know not everyone was there because it was a smaller crowd than this. So I really don't have a question for the board or a request for the board, but I do for the audience. And so I have been a volunteer in North County, at North County High School or Riverlook Elementary School for a long time. Many of you probably have done the same thing. So I'm a big civics person, and you know, they don't teach that in school anymore. There's no civics classes, there's no debate. These kids are coming up, they don't know how to do that. And so I'm just encouraging you to get involved to the best of your ability. If you're gonna use a computer, and I understand, and I heard this lady's comment, get some young person to help you, okay? Because I do it all the time, even at work. I'm like, fix this for me. So get involved and find the people that can help you, because it's really important. I know we all work, we don't have time. I didn't feel like coming. I wanted to like fry a couple hot dogs and stay, huh? But I said to Amy, hey, we gotta go. So I don't have a request. I just want to reiterate that we appreciate the opportunity to do that. We plan on staying connected, and being involved. We do think it's really important. And I would just say, as like a community of interest, we have our hope, a growing body of people that are more interested in developing our local communities rather than depending on state and federal guidelines, right? Because you're gonna make the most healthy community that way, right? And we were saying it right now, because we're gonna have supply chains interrupted. We better be able to fend for ourselves. So anyway, thank you. I have no other requests. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, CMM Johnson.
That would be murder.
Hello,
Hello.
the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much. My name is Charlotte Marie Johnson. Oh, honey, didn't hear me. My name is Charlotte Marie Johnson. I'm a born and raised, Elkridge Landing Road person. My problem was this. This was the first heard that I had that this is going on. The only person in my community, I live at the Greenbrier area down off of Harmon's Road. And this is the first heard, this letter I got. Nobody else got the letter in my community that I know of, because I don't see nobody here that I know. My question will always be, I hear some of these wonderful things that are going to happen in our area, in our community, but I don't hear anybody saying about a school being built. If you're gonna put all of these folks into this area, in all of these beautiful houses you're gonna build, you're gonna need schools. Harmon's Elementary School is overrun, has been for the last, I don't know how many years, since my niece has been there, and she's 24 right now. Additionally, when I read this little note down here where it says BWI Airport Local Development Council, BWI Airport is right up the road for me. And if I'm in a good mood, I can take a walk that far. One of the things that has bothered me across the road for me is a place called County.
Talent, I understand, is a biomedical facility. I'm trying to figure out how it got there. And the only thing that I can think of that it got there was because there used to be Emerson in that area, and nobody bothered to say, no, we don't want any more of that stuff, because up the hill from where Callan sits is a housing development that had to be reviewed by the EPA before they would allow them to build the houses on. Yes, I am one of those people. I am one of those people that definitely cares about what goes on in the neighborhood, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all, this is my first heard about what is supposed to happen. Do I understand the zoning and the Ws and the Cs? No, but I do understand that this area has become extremely crowded. And you have to remember, Arundel Mills is sitting across from me. And Arundel Mills has more traffic coming in and out of it. But when it was planned and when it was built, for some strange reason, nobody paid attention. Now we have to come back through, and when the county's gotta pay more money and redo those roads and those sidewalks because it ain't doing nothing but costing us money.
Could I interrupt for you?
Yes,
One
ma'am.
second. Can you tell me what address?
Oh, excuse me, 49, Greenville Boulevard, right behind the Greenbrier sign that's off of Harmon's Road. I really do have a problem with some of the things that I hear. I do understand that you need to have a tax base in order to take and build schools and build parks and do all of those good things. But my situation is always going to be, when we do it, if you're gonna put a house and a whole bunch of houses next to a place that is a biomedical facility, all I saw when I really learned what they did there was was watching the news a couple days later, and I watched the choo-choo train, the car roll up in that train and spread all of that gas. I don't know what they do, I don't know what they build. I do know that I will give thanks to Anne Arundel County Police, because when I asked them to show up, or when we asked them to show up, they do show up. They do offer as much protection as the law allows. But one of the things that bothers me is if we're going to do all of these things, when we have someone decide that they're gonna come in and put in Arundel Mills, they need to have some sidewalks, they need to have some walkways that are decent, that they don't have to come back a few years later and tear them up. Because if I had been here, I would have did everything that I could. I was spending my 22 years in Uncle Sam's Army, and I was awake when Arundel Mills got started. Because there was a choice between Sykesville and Anne Arundel County. Apparently, as the quote says, we won out. I don't see how we won, because used to take me 8 minutes to get to work, it now takes me 38. Because I had more trying to figure out how we got two Royal Farms on the same road, not even a mile from each other. And right across the street from the last one that was built is a Heights. Don't get me wrong, I understand development, and I know that it has its uses. But if you're going to take and do what I believe, no offense, is already a done deal. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's what I see. Because if this had been as important as I feel that it is right now, when all of that stuff got started, I would have had a letter by then. Like I said, this is the first letter I got. Nobody else in a 90-home development location received a letter but me. God only knows why, probably because I got a big mouth. But I will be honest with you, there is a way for everything to be built to make it fair for everybody that is in a specific location. The thing that I would like to see is the fairness. And sometimes people who decide that they want to build, to change, to redo, you gotta come out your pocket in order to make it livable for the people who are going to be living around you. Because I'm born and raised here, watching the airplanes fly over some BWI, don't get me wrong, I got a problem with all of these people who complain about those planes flying over their house. All I'm gonna say to you is this, that airport was there before most of us were here. When it used to be Friendship Airport. As we used to say in the Uncle Sam's Army, suck it up and drive on. Done.
Chair, could you please give us the CZ number for that one? I'm still looking for it on the map.
Address, there's no CZ number that I see, and it may be a consistency change. 49 Green Knoll Boulevard in Hanover, Maryland.
Thank you.
Okay, one more speaker. Is there anybody else before Timothy Burks comes up? Wants to talk about a property?
Yes,
Okay. And Timothy, the reason I'm putting you off till last because you're general transportation. So just, we'll see if we get all the properties done. Yes, ma'am.
Not property, but it's my area, Arundel. What I'm reading off this letter is, I want to know if I'm understanding it right. With the in Arundel, they're saying they want to create parks and trails and, it sounds to me like they want to put another rail system in to go this way instead of straight the way it's going. And I'm very upset if they put more rail in. When I moved in, they put that light rail in, and we had nothing but people breaking in their houses, they stole my car. It was a constant mess. The one, shopping center down there, they got over here, Cromwell, it's almost totally closed down. Stores have left because of the thieving and all the stuff going on. And I just can't see if they build more ways to bring people in there.
There was a saying on that light rail up the dock, that it was nicknamed the loot rail.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of neighborhood thievery going on.
Oh, it was. And that's what I was concerned about, are they, because I live right there. The light rail goes here and I'm 2 houses up from it. And it's like, and then the airport keeps expanding, that's on the other side of me. And it's like, is it ever gonna stop? They're just, seems to me they're trying to push the neighborhood out. With all the construction or whatever they're doing, because they keep building more lots for the airport and stuff, so that was just my concern. And they rezoned one strip of our school. My granddaughter should be walking to school. Well, they came in and said they're busing her to Glenbury High. Why, when it would take her 6 minutes to walk, would they bus her to another school? And that really upset me. But I didn't know about it until she was getting ready to go to high school and had to sign up to go. And they said, well, she's going to Glenbury. I said, no, she could walk to North County. So it's stuff like that. Why are they doing this?
Thank you for your comments. I do know that the Board of Education is working on redistricting, and that will help alleviate the capacity issues that they have.
Yeah, but she would have been involved, taking the kids that are already being bused and bus them somewhere. That's the dumb thing.
Okay, ma'am, please state your name and the address of the property, please.
Good evening, my name is Raymond Seal Johnson, and I live in the Humphrey area of Anne Arundel County. And I would like for, my addresses are several, because I would like for any members of the Humphrey community, if you would please stand so that they can see that you are represented here today. I wanted to clear up some information about, whether or not we agreed to exactly what was going on in the Bell Road Corporation, situation, the rezoning of it. We did send a letter saying that we agreed to the presentation that James Lighthizer Jr. provided when he presented the proposed development of Bell Road Corporation. That's what we agreed to. We also sent in May of 23, well, sometime after that, I guess about November, Pete, we sent you a letter, and I had the list of the people in the area, all of these multiple addresses. These are the people
that, really wanted to let everyone know that we are aware of the development stages of rezoning of the Belleville Corporation. Sand and gravel pit located behind the north side of Hammond's Lane and east side of Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard. The thing is, we are skeptical about the development of that area, but it was proposed to us that if there was development, because we were told that something is going to happen in the area. And if, that's the supposition, if there is development there, what would we like to see? So this is what these signatures are all about, all 4 pages of it. I don't have the original letter with me. Venus, do you happen to have that letter? Okay, but we do have a copy of it, the information that we sent to Pete Smith and all of this, with all of these signatures. So I wanted to make sure that we are clear about that. Secondly, I'd like to thank the Stakeholders Advisory Committee, because you started out with a 5-point program. Can someone from the Stakeholders Advisory Committee give us those 5 points? I don't have all of them, but one was watershed, transportation, housing, and there's 2 others.
Economic development, transportation.
Can you stand up there?
I'm just county staff.
There were 5, and in those areas, there was a big concern that, at the same time concern that we would have for development of the Belleville Corporation, which is directly behind the Pumphrey community. When we initially heard information about the rezoning that was going to go on, then we heard about the 50-foot gradations that were going on right there in that area. We also heard information about the history of it. Most of us knew it because we were raised right in that area. We did hear about a 600-foot buffer that they were going to provide for us, but we were grateful to the planning and zoning and the Office of Planning and Zoning for the rejection of that rezoning. So I just wanted to be mindful of that, and so we are hoping that you will take the recommendation from the Stakeholders Advisory, and that is to not rezone that area, because they have been turned down several times for rezoning. And so we got that information, but we did say if, and that's the big if we cannot do anything about it, if it's thrust on us, we would like to have a 600-foot buffer, and we would like to see housing in the form of 25% park area and 50% residential, mixed residential, and a certain breakdown of the residential, certainly providing for service people in the area, our police officers and our teachers. So we are concerned about that. We do have a record of the previous administration from the county council coming in and saying that they were going to do, provide a school there. Someone just mentioned that. But for some reason, that did not happen. So we're just as concerned with the environment, especially for the residents of Pumphrey, as the Office of Planning and Zoning. And so we hope you will take the recommendation from the Stakeholders Advisory Board, and we thank those that have worked so diligently on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think more to confirm the site.
Okay, Elizabeth, that would be,
Can she please submit written testimony? It was very hard to follow.
PLP
Oh.
0004.
It was. Sorry, you're freezing.
Any other questions?
You're free.
Any questions from any of the board members?
So, yes, can you hear me? Because you were freezing there for a while. If she can please submit written testimony from your community, that would be helpful for us. Thank you.
We've been there since 1832, so we're quite an old community here in this city. And so we're still dealing with a lot of problems that we've had to historically deal with in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Submit all of the signatures that she has, where she has her written.
Yes, yeah, I have copies. I can make copies.
Yeah, please submit all that in writing.
5 pages.
Yes, sir.
I got a question about that parcel.
They were gonna read, the young lady that spoke was talking about R5 and R10. If that would go through, how many total housing units would that be for that area? Probably 100, 150?
10 units and 15 acres.
Can you answer that?
I can't answer that right now. I'd have to break this down and look at it, but I can't do it right now, but we will note the
My
question.
thinking is, if it's R5 and R10 for however many acres, you're talking a couple of hundred families can move in there. And I wanna know at what point, by the time that gets built and people move in, how long does it take to get a new school built? Because that almost, the schooling in the area, the only high school is North County. There are 2 middle schools in the area. They're kind of at the breaking point right now. Now, I know this would take a while to build, but still, you're talking about a lot of input of children to schools, and as we all know, it takes 5 to 10 years to build a new school somewhere. So you're talking about, and I was born in 47. I was one of the children that had to wait for Andover High School to be built. So that when I went to high school, they were junior, senior high school. And we had to go half shifts where I lived in Linthicum. We had to go half shifts at Brooklyn Park. I was lucky that I got the afternoon shift, which was 12 to 5 or 12:30 to 5. But we did that until Andover was over. Since then, Andover is no longer a high school, it's a middle school, and they converted the middle school to a high school. And we all know that when you do that, middle schools are built smaller than a high school because of the size.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
But
If I may answer that question for you. The CIP program, capital improvement program that, the county council is responsible for, it is not lost on me that, school capacity is an issue in North County. You will see, with my behavior with Region 2, you will see that I made a lot of changes to the final draft that came down because I was concerned about infrastructure, roads, water issues, as well as capacity. So it is not lost on me that this northern part of the county is also impacted by those same entities. And so, yes, I am certainly looking for revenue right now to expand our CIP program. For the last year and a half. You can ask other members on the council. I am looking at even P3 type of relationships that I've been exploring outside of the county to bring additional revenue into Anne County to help build schools faster. So totally understand that. Just to reiterate on the, and I don't want to, this is your process. I don't want to sort of overshadow that. But for me, when it comes to Humphreys area, I certainly wanted to protect their legacy as well as, so everyone in this room is crystal clear. I wanted something other than a rubble landfill that has years and years and years worth of debris and other contaminants potentially that have been on that land that potentially impacts the houses over there. So I was willing to work with the county to ensure that we had some feasible project that could remediate that. So whenever they have to build on that land, they're gonna have to remediate it. And that is a win, it's in my mind, for the homeowners that live over there that have to, and we've gotten the same emails from Mr. Ross and everybody else over there about potential cancer clusters because of the water table that's impacted by that as well. And so all those things are taken into consideration, and it is certainly my intent to make sure we keep the character of every community as close to, as possible to the same characterization that it exists now. North Linthicum, anyone from North Linthicum and Improvement Association in here. We literally had a Zoom call yesterday or the day before yesterday. And that was the key thing for them, is just keeping that characterization. It is not lost on me, and it is certainly my intent, once we get to the end of this process, to try to maintain that as best as possible. So, but yes, school is certainly, additional schools are at the top of my list of things to procure. So, thank you.
You mentioned open space on 25% of this large property.
Yes,
And I believe Project Open Space is a state program, right?
correct.
It's not county, so, but I just want to point out, I don't know that Brooklyn, Northland, and there's any open space. And wouldn't the use of this large parcel of property as open space be a very significant improvement for that North County area that
100%.
almost no open space? Like a park would be great.
Totally agree. I do want to make two distinctions. Open space dollars that are at the federal, at the state level to procure land is different from our designation as open space land for the county to retain and a lot of those are in environmentally sensitive areas that we streams, perennial streams and things like that we don't want to build around.
Which I think this property does have environmentally sensitive.
Well, it's called the debris and the rubble and the landfill and the years of stuff that's been thrown in. Not trying to, I don't know, the owners are here, want to put them in a bad spot, but, the biggest piece is if we do nothing, specifically with that Grover Road project, they don't need our permission to build on the desert. They have R5 right now. They can literally build tomorrow without us doing anything. So, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, the previous county executive had wanted to try to procure the land, buy the whole land. That deal fell through. Obviously, elections have consequences. And so the new county executive, Stuart Pittman, had changed the model. So he's been trying to work with them, and I have been trying to work with them to do something different. Part of their agreement when they came to us was to retain some of that land for park space or open space. And so we can only get that by working with them. But they can build without anyone's permission here today, because it's R5. They build today. And so the goal is to try to partner with them so that we can build something that's usable for both their needs as well as our needs. I had initially said in the meeting last summer, we met a couple of times with Humphreys, which is more impactful to a community. A small warehouse piece or another 100 houses. And that's literally is one of the examples I brought up. So that's why I wasn't necessarily turned off by the 25% for warehouse use, because one, they would have to remediate the land, but two, we would get that 25%, 40 acres. If you think about 160 acres, 25%, it's like 40 acres of land, and we would essentially get gifted to us in some capacity, or that's going to be designated as park spaces. That's a win for us, and we, the county citizens, taxpayers, don't have to pay for it. I like that. I like those numbers, and so that's why I was entertaining that agreement with them when we were dealing with it in this past piece of legislation. But that's where that stemmed from.
Yeah, but you said it's R1 now, right?
It's R5.
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 Well, if they were built to build tomorrow, you'd still have the school problem. So rather than R5 or R10, which the lady was talking about, in a specific amount of acreage, maybe you ought to change that to R1 so that because it'll take you 5, even if they started building tomorrow. I've got a community across from me on B&A Boulevard and Maple Road that they're putting, I don't know, 30 houses on.
Around the hills, yes.
Behind from the hills, yes. And
Yeah, we lost that validation.
I know. But anyway, it would take forever to procure ground for a school, even if they started, if these guys rejected what they want now, and they said, to hell with you guys, we're gonna build. You couldn't support all these kids.
No, don't forget, they still have to meet APF standards. So even if they started building today, if the capacity for the school is not there, they can't build. They can't build. Like if you don't have room, school seats within there, you can't build it. So there is some limitations to their construction patterns that can prevent that. So, but I don't want to You'll have your day in court with me, I guess. This is the PAB's platform. I just wanted to, that question has come up.
Do they take that into consideration?
We do.
I know.
Oh, they do, yes, yes, they do.
Yes, we take all of this into consideration, yes.
But didn't you say the schools or the people have to be involved with Ferndale down in Glen Burnie because it's crowded?
Yes, and it's.
It's only got a granddaughter who's a walk.
Yes.
And this year, she's a bus driver down in Glen Burnie.
And there's actually that design in Sunspring, the middle school, half of the community goes to one middle school, and the other half of the community goes to another middle school. And elementary school.
Okay.
If you could keep.
Hold on, please.
Keep more track, and just to put a rest on the school issue, so the school board is responsible for the school line, but I do want you all to know, Anne Arundel County has roughly 90-some thousand school seats in its system. We have about 85,000 students in that system. That means there's 10,000 vacant seats spread out throughout the system. Let's just listen. The school board was trying to remediate that issue by moving some of the students who are north, where most of the population is, further south into some of the more underpopulated schools. That's what I did. I wasn't a part of that process, but I totally understand your frustration. I'm just telling you why they were doing it. I didn't say I agree with it, but I'm telling you why they were doing it.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter how many vacant seats there are in the school system, too. It matters pretty area they're in. And that's what matters.
It does, if we have to raise your property taxes to pay for it. It will raise revenue, so I think. What I'm saying though is the revenue matters for teachers, everything like that, so we can maximize use of those school facilities. That's a benefit for the county. But there were some considerations that they should have taken into, when they did the line. But PAB, please. Go on.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Okay, Timothy Burke signed up to speak. Timothy?
Can I have a quick question? Quick question, sir.
Can you let them go and I'll be here at the end and you can ask me at the end?
Let me just say this, the one concern I have, other than the schools, is the infrastructure. I've gone through a battle of rezoning some property behind the house that I have. But I sit at the lake at Athens Lane. The line is so long, southbound, that I'm trying to get through the Bell Road Road and I gotta sit there for 15 minutes. Or my time, 6:48, sometimes it's easier for me to take the beltway around the Nursery Road, get off the Nursery Road, go down Nursery Road and come to that way. The traffic is horrendous. Now, I've said this to somebody, they said, well, it's because of the closed, the Cambridge. I said, well, that's an excuse.
Well, thank you, Mr. Burks.
Their glasses? All right.
I'm Timothy Burks, 95 Forestdale Avenue, Glen Burnie, but I actually live in the Woodlawn Heights subdivision. I'm thankful we have a planning committee with visions of what could be. Thankful for the improvements that have been made in the 75 years I've lived here. But we must not forget we also have to live in the present. We must be able to respond to the ever-changing circumstances before us before creating new ones, not just adding to the aging or overtaxed resources growing worse by the year. Changing demographics and increasing population produces increasing traffic issues, as people just mentioned. Investing in new recreational facilities and building bike trails on the roads they will depend on are becoming increasingly crowded and unsafe to drive on due to lack of maintenance. Have any field visits been made to the areas described in your letter that states, and this is from your letter, a majority of the residential areas have a small town feel with narrow tree-lined streets and single-family homes. Well, I've lived in one of the identified areas, Woodlawn Heights, for most of my 75 years, and it used to be that way. Over the past 10 years, distinctive change. The single family being replaced by 5 to 10 cars,
Yes.
work trucks, boats, RVs parked on already too narrow lane streets laid out in the late 1800s. Having to wait for oncoming traffic with no pullovers, school buses, trash trucks, delivery trucks having a hard time getting through or tying up traffic. And I can just add bikes to that mix, it's gonna be really a problem. I've already provided subdivision plats of Woodlawn Heights, through my mailing. I have an original here, with dimensions and pictures and show how narrow and unusable, roadways really are. In fact, one of the pinch points on where the bike trail is designed. So I drove with me tonight, when he was got clipped with the head-on collision on what should have been a 2-lane road. My attached letter describes some of these. Besides looking for cars, you won't have to look hard for bikers before opening doors and getting out of our cars. I've had bad experiences with rude and careless bikers on current bike trails. They could run into pedestrians or pets. Yet usually hear a bell ring or to your left. And if you turn the wrong way, you're gonna get hit. That's just on a normal bike trail. And you add that to cars coming up and down both sides and parked on both sides. Additional sidewalks may help pedestrians, but they will only force parked cars further into the travel lanes. As someone observation my whole career, I'm not against trails. But on some of the proposed maps, will only increase congestion as well as possibly being dangerous. Too much speeding and failure to obey stop signs, especially even in my neighborhood. Narrow roads patched and in poor repair. Guardrails and signs grown in by vegetation, creating reduced visibility. And some of these same conditions exist on interstate and state roads, as well as county and side streets that are really bad. Potholes that shake your cars, damage your tires. The bottom line, I feel in some cases, like I'm living in a house with a leaking roof. And the suggestion of what to do is to build an addition on your house. I realize it's the planning committee, but can you also be involved in citizens' problems solving also? I can adapt to living where I am right now, but I don't want to see it get worse. So I thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Burks.
I provided information on pictures.
We have it.
So on there.
Picture.
Is there anyone else? No one else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else that wants to come down and speak about a particular property?
Does it have to be a particular property?
You have 2 minutes, you can speak.
I probably did sign up. Apparently I signed with the wrong. My name is Laura Donovan.
Okay, well, come on down.
We have that.
Let me just mention also, written testimony will be accepted until October 16th, midnight. Your name and your address, please, ma'am.
My name is Laura Donovan. Address is 114 Glendale Avenue, also in Woodlawn Heights. Everything that the last gentleman said is true, and then some. I have noticed through the years that the weather program will have one that we're getting copious amounts of rain, and I look out my window and not a drop is falling. And in my mind, it could be one or two scientifically proven things. Either one, there's so much pavement that the water is evaporating before it hits the ground, or two, there is so much pollution from the airport and the surrounding area that it's all the moisture is being held in the clouds. So I guess my biggest thing here is I'm really tired of seeing all of the woods being torn down. That helps filter the air, it helps keep the noise down from the airport. All the paving has to stop. The gentleman from Arundel about the Dunkin' Donuts, he's right. It's ridiculous that year after year after year, our taxes go up. We have to come to these things and fight just to keep our neighborhoods intact. So
you get my point, so that's where I'm at, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Please state your name and address.
Amanda Zambrano, 6445 St. Philip's Road in Heights, Maryland. Recently, I got a letter earlier in the summer about, I guess, rezoning my own property. It was, I think I had a section that was at the end of it, which, was sort of buttressed against a nature kind of like area. I can't remember what you guys call that. But, I didn't really have a problem with it being rezoned to residential because I live there and it's my property. So I was like, okay, no problem. But then I got to thinking, I was like, why all of a sudden, since it was built in 76, does it need to be rezoned? And then I thought, what are they planning to do behind me that they need permission to all of a sudden rezone their property? So I went on the zoning website that you guys indicated, and it's a little difficult to navigate in general. So I started reading, and I'm like, holy Christmas, this is not easy to understand. But I couldn't really determine if you had anything planned for the area or not, because it's got like petroleum lines and, you know, like all the electricity, but it seemed to stay, like it was gonna stay zoned for like nature, but I couldn't really determine that based on your website. So I just wanted to know if you had something planned that I didn't know about or didn't understand. And then my other question was, when I started to look up everything for the maglev, again, very difficult to understand on the website. You're like, oh, we could do this, or maybe we'll do this, or maybe we'll do this, or maybe we'll do this. And you're like, well, which one is best? And how do you figure that out as a community member, where your ideas are going? And, you know, like how it's gonna impact you and your community, because it's not transparent. So those are my questions.
Okay, thank you.
It's not transparent at all. It's so, the language, the whole vocabulary is so dense, you can't understand it. And not out of the world.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
I'm Tricia Timmons. I live at 114 Forestdale Avenue in Ferndale. Some other people have already spoken from my neighborhood. I actually didn't get a letter about this. My mother, who was on the other side of the neighborhood, got this, so I didn't know anything about it, which is concerning to begin with. But specifically, you know, some people have talked about the light rail station. What's in this letter is not very clear about what they're trying to do in our neighborhood at all. I am concerned about additional bicycle lanes coming in and it not being clear exactly where that's going. Specifically for Broadview and Orchard. If you're familiar with those roads, there's really no place for a bicycle lane. So I'm confused. It says there's going to be a study. And I'm not sure if the people of the neighborhood can be a part of said study and how that process goes about, or if this is already kind of a done deal. And that's not clear at all. So I would just ask that the neighborhood be more involved in this, and that if the study is done, that it's clear to the neighborhood about where this all is going and the purpose of it. Because I don't even understand why you would put a bike trail on Orchard and Broadview, because both of them kind of dead end out. So just more clarification for the neighborhood would be great. And more communication instead of this coming to like 1 or 2 houses on a street would be great. But thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I can just ask a question.
Sure.
I live in Brooklyn Park. I live very close to the city. So I read this thing and the historic preservation or whatever, which makes no sense to me. I'll be right out just to ask you, are we going to lose our property or have it devalued?
Can you please repeat the question? Chairman, it's hard to hear.
I think the question was, are we going to lose our property or have it devalued? Okay, what property are you referring to?
I am pre-qualified Avenue.
I'll go out and state categorically, no, you're not gonna lose your property, just so everyone is aware. This process has to be done just like the census, every 10 years, America counts every person in the country. The county, also has, actually every jurisdiction in Maryland, has a similar requirement, so we do a comprehensive rezoning just about every 10 years. It gives the county the opportunity to look at itself and say, are we best utilizing the land space that we have in the area? And it also gives homeowners the opportunity to reassess, what they want to do with their land. There's the state assessment and tax, estat. Every 3 years, they do an evaluation of your property. So your houses will fall within a 3-year cycle. Some of you all may get it year 1, some may get it year 2, others may get it year 3. That's when the state assesses, that's when your property value is assessed, through them. Even whatever changes that are made here, that will not be, and this is a letter straight from that, because we communicated with them with the previous region 2 specifically, and asked them that same question. And their response is no, unless you're changing something to develop or something like that, it is going to go up. So if you have property that has a request in to develop, as that more than likely will modify the property taxes or the property value, I should say, on that parcel. So, but no, you will not lose your land. It is not going to be devalued, any of that stuff. It just hasn't happened. And the last 30, 40 years of housing assessments will show you that the data it doesn't support that response. So the county's responsibility to look at itself every 10 years. We're required to do this, which is why they're doing it, to give you an opportunity to reassess what you want on your particular parcels, but also to understand the identity of the county as a whole. So that's why we're doing this process.
If you get just a little bit, I live directly next to, I'm adjacent, I look at it every morning, out of the kitchen window. An SD property, the whole section, you probably don't know the area, but the red light at Andover Road, all the way down, was primarily SB, there's small sections of C4. That's gonna directly decrease my property value of finance. When I'm in retirement age now, you go from SB to C4. Can someone in the board, what's the worst case scenario for C4? Jimmy Lee? McDonald?
There's a website, and as I asked, for your individual case, I challenge, we should speak after this. And I totally understand your concerns, and because there are similar concerns to other regions. So you're not the only people in the county that feel this way. Other citizens in the other 8 regions also felt this way and or feel this way. And so I would just encourage you to, if you want to speak one-on-one, I can tell you history.
Commercial is just a blank slate for a tattoo parlor of all these things that you can see, like prom night. It opened up. It was beautiful, it was great, had a giant, had this, and had a mixed use. Now there's a blood plasma center there, the KFC's closed, the bank is closed, now I gotta go to Unbury to go to the bank. The business has been getting ripped off for whatever reason, they determine it's better for us to close up and move. So there is a downside to commercial. Now those people have to look at taking terms.
We can.
Say it again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question real quick. The Ferndale station, are they looking at I would look at the renderings, and Cromwell and Ferndale have the same rendering. Like what you wanted to do with it. Are you looking to expand Ferndale, make it similar to Cromwell?
You talking about light rail?
The light rail station, because it looks like part of the redevelopment is around the light rail station for the Ferndale, Cromwell.
I don't know anything about that. Right now, we're looking at the change zoning request. Okay, hold on. Ma'am, would you like to speak? Is that Ms. Vidal? Hi, Senator.
Good evening, I'm Senator Pam Vidal. First, I want to thank all of you that came out tonight, because I think this is a really great turnout. And we have a lot of concerns about zoning changes, and I understand the process because I was on the county council for 8 years, so, I thought that we did zoning the whole time I was on the council, because we did small area plans. But my concern is really about, we have the BWI overlay, and this might be something for our councilman to answer. So the BWI overlay allowed a lot of more dense development, like these Avalon apartments. I don't know, maybe it's 500 apartments back here at Avalon, not far from here. Up here behind where was the movie theater. So I just would like to know how much more of this BWI overlay is there to be developed. They tried to upzone 2 of my R1 lots to R2, and I'm like, we didn't ask for that. We didn't ask for more density on our property. And all the way Andover Road, there's attempts because this is considered like a job region. But for those of us that live near Nursery Road and the airport, we're dealing with a great deal of traffic and impact already from the business. And I don't think it's fair to upzone us because we're a job market. We're already doing our job to produce revenue for this county and the state, but the airport and all these jobs and all these hotels. I don't know how much more density Monthlycom needs to take in this plan. So I ask as you look at the whole plan, think about what's already here, with what opportunity there already is for more development, and maybe not give additional density over what we already have planned. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator.
Put a slide up with the address, if folks want to send in written comments.
Okay, if anyone wants to send in written comments, we have the address right here on the screen, and you can go online and submit written comments. With that, everybody's had an opportunity to speak, and we've heard you, and our deliberations will be October 16th. And at this point, I need a motion from a board member to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned.